Fantastic.
So, Madam Chair, I believe this is everyone that we are expecting.
Correct. So, do I open this with
You do.
the agenda? Okay.
You know what? I just want to reiterate, you know, we've worked with so many people who are first-time chairs. So any questions, just say, what do I do? And we'll let you know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we don't sit in silence. Okay, so a call to order. And can you tell me what that means?
So call to order just means the meeting's starting.
Okay.
So, you know, that's really all.
Okay, so call to order. Second thing on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for June 1st of 2021.
So you can call for any changes. If any member of the committee has changes, they can raise those at this time. If there are no changes, then you can ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
I believe Heidi had changes, right?
yeah, I sent those into you. Heidi, would you like to tell us what those changes are?
Yeah, I think there was just a typo in identifying who was the speaker, and I'm moving through it right now. It was under correspondence, and it was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th paragraph under correspondence. And it says Chair Weller if the committee wants to respond to her individually or as a committee. And I think it was supposed to refer to another individual speaking at that point.
Duly noted.
Thank you,
And-
Heidi. Oh, go ahead.
And forgive me for interrupting. I don't believe anyone is our official secretary. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so we're recording this, and the person who took minutes last time will take minutes again. It's someone on Elisa's staff. And so they'll go by the recording to take the minutes. So she'll take what you just said, Heidi, and incorporate that into these minutes and make those changes.
Thank you for both those efforts.
Is there anyone else that needs to make any changes to the
Nav
agenda?
has her hand up.
Oh, wait. Oh, Nav, sorry, I didn't see that.
Yeah, no
Mhm.
worries. This is not really a change, but my last name is misspelled everywhere, which is totally fine. I have no objections to that, but just wanted to point that out.
Oh, it's important to point that out.
I wish that someone would misspell my name because it's not really a good name to have. So if you want to call me Morgan, that's okay.
Okay. Anybody else? No.
So at this point, you can entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay. Does everyone approve of these
A
changes?
motion- I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I second.
Okay.
And we do a roll call vote on these. So you call out each person's name and you get their vote. So
Okay.
you just sort of on your screen going some, you know, it's just for the members of the committee.
Okay. Nav.
Yes.
Okay. Heidi.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Okay. And myself, yes. So approved. Meeting minutes for June 1st approved. So we can go to the next three, the staff updates, which were communication with the district attorney, flag policy in relation to Pride Month, and Juneteenth article in town manager's newsletter. So updates.
So
And that's Dave, right?
yeah, so I'm going to share, I'm looking for the right one. I wanted to let you guys know where we are with this. So you should see my screen. So let me see. So I contacted by phone the district attorney's office at your request. I explained what we're looking for and why, referencing the arrest in Berkeley that was very similar, and asking for any update regarding the case on Mr. Welty in relation to that. I didn't hear anything. So I made a call. They said emailed the question. Then I had to remind them last week. Oh, and this is this is the wrong one. So I'm going to stop sharing this. I'll just give you what they told me. Where did I go? And then you'll see here, the response was from DA Frugoli is listed on the top of the screen there. So just to let you know, that's the response we got, and I'll stop sharing it.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Sure.
Okay, so the next one is the,
Actually,
oh, go ahead, tell me.
Madam Chair, if I may, just kind of add on to that, and Dave, appreciate you sharing that communication. I reached out to the district attorney to her personal email, which I have last Tuesday, and I still haven't heard a response. And my question was similar to that of Dave's, which is just asking for an update, because if you'll remember, the incident happened, about a month or so went by, and nothing had been done other than the person being released. But at that point, which was about a month later, I had asked the district attorney some questions at the Marin Council of Mayors and Council Members. It's a lot of council in there. She basically said, we're taking this up, and we're gonna look at everything. Hate crimes are hard to prosecute, so we want to make sure everything's all right. And then the next night at the Marin Democratic Central Committee, she had come, and the committee, which was it was a week later, the committee was taking up a resolution which they passed, calling on her to take action against the gentleman. At the time, she had a much different approach, which was to say she was waiting on evidence from the CMPA. And I had talked with Chief Norton and certainly Brian, and made sure, the DA's office had everything they need, which they attested to. And then, so mysteriously, the day after that meeting, a press release comes out from the district attorney's office saying that, we want to look at this. You guys have all probably seen the press release, but it also said at the end, we'll be providing updates as they come. I think the timeliness of the press release was very odd as a PR professional myself. This was a month after the event, and only after she had been questioned a couple of times publicly about it. And it was a big nothing burger of a press release saying, we're still investigating, we haven't done anything, but we'll be providing updates. And I thought that line was important. So, having not heard Dave's update until tonight, I did want to follow up myself, because I have been the one questioning her at these points, and I have not heard anything back. And so I think her response to Dave is pretty much indicative of, kind of how their office is looking at this. I think ultimately, they would hope it just go away, but I think we have clear examples here in the Bay Area of other district attorneys who have taken, much different actions and feel that the cases can be prosecuted effectively. So I just wanted to provide that additional update to that item, and keep you guys informed.
And
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Nav. Thank you, Steve.
I do have a question. As we go through the staff updates, is it possible for us to discuss them as we go through them? Or should we just wait for all the updates and then discuss them at the end? What's procedurally more appropriate?
You know, you certainly can update them one at a time. There's not a real hard and fast rule around that. So why don't we take them and get it, you know, really talk through each one so we don't have to try to write down our questions and try to remember them. So go ahead.
So, I mean, I was just curious. I mean, what at this point, I think it'd be really good for us to just discuss what we can do, if anything, and what approach we can take. I feel like we have to. It's our obligation to think of a strategy that would be helpful in ensuring that the DA does the right thing here, and whatever that right thing is, but at least communicate and relay things so that people feel like, you know, there is some sort of justice here.
Agreed. Does anyone on the committee have anything else that they'd like to offer to what Nav says about something we could do, something we could, you know, contacting the district attorney's office, more people to contact? Because it sounds like it wasn't until Steve and Dave, you know, asked questions that there was no movement. So that's, oh wait, Heidi, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just for context, not being an attorney, not knowing what is typical for this kind of response. I know both Larry and Nav are civil rights attorneys. What's common? I mean, I find it really surprising as a layperson reading this that we haven't, you know, the person has not been named. There's no activity going on. He's still released into our community after making what sounded like a legitimate threat to the health and safety of somebody in our community, much less our mayor. So is that typical, number one? Like, is that typical for our particular community versus others? And what might you rely on in your experience that would inform really effective responses that a committee like ours could take?
So I can tell you what my experience was 27 years ago when I worked as a DA, special assistant DA in Durham, North Carolina. And my experience then was anytime there was an ongoing investigation, the DA's office doesn't comment because for two reasons. Number one is an ethical reason. They have an obligation not to try and influence public opinion about an ongoing investigation. And the second reason is they don't like to give out evidence so that the defense can prepare. So I assume that's probably what's going on here. And although Nav and I both do, you know, same kind of law, civil rights law, most of our practice is focused on employment discrimination and like discrimination in education settings, that kind of stuff. So, you know, we don't really do a lot of the police misconduct kind of cases. So I don't think we can give you, you know, a lot of insight into it from that perspective. That's what it seems like to me. We have had some cases where we've had victims who have been raped or sexually assaulted, and it's very difficult to get records from the police department. I mean, that's different here because, you know, this is the DA, but I know it's difficult to get it from a police department. I never even tried to get them from a DA because I just assumed that it would be too cumbersome. But anyway, that's kind of my view. Nav, I don't know if you have a different take on it.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I've never done criminal law, so this would definitely be outside of my scope as we do civil law. But I see what Larry's saying, and I kind of suspect that is the case, but I wonder if there's any way to put pressure on the DA's office to at least, I mean, at this point, if they are investigating and they can't disclose anything.
Well,
Heidi,
you had another point too, and that another question, and that had to do with why the guy is still out. Once he makes bail, he's entitled to be out in the public. It would be up to to Brian to ask for like a temporary restraining order or some kind. Usually the DA issues a stay away order. So he probably is under that and he can't get near Brian or do anything to Brian's property.
Yes and no, Larry, but that wasn't immediately done. It took a while for that,
Okay.
and only after the town's attorney got involved, frankly.
Okay.
You know, and I think, and honestly, I think, you know, to answer your question, Heidi, and Nav's question, I think a lot of what Larry said is accurate and true, right? Like, you can't, as a DA, you don't want to be seen as being influenced by public pressure to make a decision. And I get Lori's position there, right? My concern is that there hasn't been a decision either way, right? And I worry that because it's politically unfavorable for her and she's mounting a campaign for election at the moment, that it's this thing where if you just don't make the decision, right, then you could say we're still investigating, when in fact, I don't believe they are. I believe they have all of the evidence that they needed to do it. And so herein lies the rub, in that, you know, I don't know, frankly, what type of pressure we as a body can apply on them. I would probably defer to staff on that. I think individually there are definitely things we could do, but what's the right ask? I mean, that's why my ask was similar to Dave's, in that I was just asking for an update. Like, are you, you know, I would like some, I think Brian in particular would like some closure to this issue, right? And I think it really is, you know, doing a disservice if this is just kicking the can down the road.
Completely. And that's actually my concern. This labyrinth of legal issues is not familiar to me, but anecdotally, a member of my family received a harassing note, and then that person tried to break into their home a week later. This was a sexual harassment note. And that twice that person filed police reports, called the police, filed a report. This is in Seattle, so I understand it's a different jurisdiction, but I do know that we could then request a copy of those reports that we filed, or this person filed. I guess my question initially is just, let's take a step back and be really clear about what it is that our goal is for this particular thing. And I think our goal is, hang on, this egregious, you know, act happened, a personal threat. This person was, you know, posted bail, was not named, is out in our community. I do believe I read that his weapons were taken away from him. So my question is, what is it that we as a committee, what is our goal? And I'm going to throw this out there and y'all can correct me, of course, but is our goal to simply say, hang on, that's not enough. That doesn't resolve the issue. That doesn't make our community members feel any safer. There's no action that's been taken. So I just think maybe it'd be helpful to clarify what we as a committee want to throw out there as a goal for any action we take. And then the second might be our collective voice. Is it possible that this committee could draft a letter to, you know, the IJ, an opinion piece, and say, you know, we're deeply disturbed about how this has been handled so far. You know, and it doesn't have to be long, but it can just be pointing out our concerns as a committee who are watchful around, you know, racial equity issues in our community.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's just, yeah, maybe it is just the different communities or counties, but the Berkeley case happened. It was like a quick turnaround. He was arrested and being tried. So it's really interesting. And then if it is a campaign or next year, 2022, for her, interesting, just her thoughts and that how can we feel safe as a community if something like this happens and there's no justice.
I can't imagine Marin DA's office being much more busy than Berkeley's office as being a reason for the delay. So, yeah, I think, you know, on my end, and I don't know, you know, some might agree, some might not. I think like, I kind of agree with everything else that's been said, but specifically like prompt action should be taken, right? Like this is too long. And you know, and I mean, I get it if maybe I'm generalizing and maybe this is bad, but for a community where, you know, if there's a lot on the DA's docket where they had a lot of serious crimes to deal with, you know, nonstop, like maybe there's some justification and delay, but this is pretty serious. And, you know, I think it should have been dealt with prompter. And maybe a letter is a good idea, like Heidi suggested. I just don't know what it's going to do. Like what keeps them from just being like, okay, great, we've received another letter. Okay, they've already asked us several times. We're just going to continue
Actually,
delaying. Can we do anything else?
Yeah. So to address that real quickly, I was making a suggestion to clarify of a letter, an open letter to the community, like in the newspaper or some other public forum, so that, you know, we as a committee are calling out the fact that this has been passively dealt with, that it's kind of suspended. There's been multiple initiatives on the part of our town council members to try to get more information about what's happening, and it's just kind of not going anywhere. And just raising the fact that this is of concern to us. And my hope would be that that would draw a broader set of eyes to the issue, maybe within our community. Anybody that read that, whether it's in the town newsletter that Dave puts out, whether it's an editorial to the IJ, you know, some sort of public space where more people can kind of basically, it would serve as an update to our community about what has or hasn't happened and what we think is of concern about that.
I think that's a good idea because it's, you know, she was voted in by the community, and so she's a public servant, and so it's her job to listen to her constituents, and that's just my opinion, at least here.
Sorry.
I would just add, you know, I think the action that we've taken thus far is the action that we wanted to take. Just, you know, reaching out, asking for updates. Granted, you know, Brian's going to know whatever the update is before anybody, and I get that they'll contact, you know, him before anybody, but they said they would be providing updates, and frankly, I don't get the sense that they're providing Brian with timely and regular updates. So, you know, part of this is tricky, right? You know, because it's, you know, there isn't much we can do other than, you know, continue to ask for updates and, like, you know, what's been discussed here, you know, do some type of, you know, editorial in the IJ or something, you know, but we'd want to make sure that, you know, the message is tight and the ask or the statement is clear. That said, to piggyback on what Nav was saying, you know, you talk about how busy the office is. I noticed they're doing a heck of a lot of promotion of all the awards and stuff that they're getting in the workshops that they're doing. So, you know, I don't get the sense that their docket is full. You know, not that they shouldn't be highlighting their successes, but seems that there's a lot going on in terms of public awareness without, you know, really touching upon the subjects that the public really wants to be aware of.
You know what I'm wondering, Tiffany, without putting you on the spot, I mean, your expertise as a journalist makes me wonder whether you could offer a perspective on using media as a way to draw attention to something, both to the community and to the target of the media attention. What's your perspective?
Media attention is always good. I mean, depending on what the outcome is that you want, because especially in my experience, a district attorney is not going to want any type of like anything to come out that they're not doing their job. And so, I mean, it can go either way. It can go either way, but I think the media adds more pressure for sure.
So I've got a proposal then, and that is to follow up on what Steve was talking about. And because I know it must be difficult for the town council to actually do something, because it seems like it's almost, you know, the more you push it, I mean, he's one of the members of the town council. So I think from the racial equity committee perspective, you know, we're not in that position. We don't have political issues. I think it makes sense for us to pass a resolution Something along the lines of this, I just wrote this out, so it's probably not very good, but I wrote out, the racist conduct directed at Mayor Brian Colbert is unacceptable, and the committee encourages the district attorney to enforce California laws against hate crimes to the fullest extent possible. We also want the community at large to know that this conduct is not reflective of the values of our community.
I think as a member, I think of our committee, I think would be great to have that. But I also believe, I think two things could work, because I think another letter is just another letter. But I think it's a good idea to do the letter. And I really like the idea of the IJ, something just where more people are aware of it. There may be other people that have been affected by similar crimes and nothing has been done. So I just think bringing it out there, if we're the Racial Equity Committee, something that we do, I think it's really important that we have something actionable.
I'm not sure about a resolution, but I know, like, for example, some of the South Bay counties, like when where they have similar organizations, what they do is whenever something happens, they put a really strong statement either on the website of, where they have, wherever our stuff is stored. But I think we've already done that, right? So, and I think there's been a statement.
We did a statement against the action itself, nothing to do with the district attorney at this point.
And the question,
Oh, wait, Alexis, you had your hand up for a while. Sorry, see.
No, go ahead.
Thank you, Tiffany. I guess I would just say that whatever statement or letter or resolution you choose to put out into the community, it might make sense to have some really specific asks. I think Steve maybe already said that, around the timeline, because it seems like that's the piece here where there's just a lot of kind of mystery, shall we say.
It's not like this was a whodunit or something, and we gotta, Pink Panther this all the way to the spot. This was pretty open and shut, and so I think, yes, the timeline is a good thing to reference on that, and again, just asking for an update to the community and to Brian, and I'll say, we talk about, do we do a resolution? Do we do the media? I think if we were to do a resolution or even just a statement and get that statement to the press, the IJ would absolutely cover it. And I think that's another area where I feel a little, I don't think this has gotten enough airtime in the press. I don't think, we've asked the district attorney's office, who did you send the press release to? Because the IJ would have reported on it if they sent the press release to the IJ. And the answer that people have gotten has been, we put it on our Facebook page. And that's not where a press release is supposed to go.
It should be in every newsroom, honestly.
So if you wouldn't mind, I want to make sure we take public comment. I had the fact that we have somebody on our council who deals with criminal defense, and it turns out she's in the audience and has. I'm not going to, I think she may have a good perspective for us regarding kind of how the DA stuff works. So she's got her hand raised now. If it's okay, I'll unmute her. Is this a good time, or do you want to continue your discussion before this?
What do you think, committee? Heidi?
Oh, goodness. I was just going to ask about procedural. Is it okay to have dialogue back and forth with comments in our community?
Well, this was just an update section, so we can't take any action. Any action that might be recommended would have to come back to our next meeting. These were the three updates were regarding the communication with the district attorney, the flag policy in relation to Pride Month, and then the Juneteenth article that was published in the newsletter. So it seems like this conversation's, kind of gotten a lot longer than everybody expected. And anytime we have any of these items, we have to allow for public input. So whether you think this is a good time, or did you want to, are there more questions? Normally it's questions, public input, and then comments.
Committee,
Good to know.
anyone who's ready for public comment, can you just let me know?
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. Everyone seems ready.
You're a part of the committee. You're not public comment. Frank. So if you have a question, go ahead and ask it. Otherwise, we'll let the public weigh in right now.
No, I was saying I was for the public to weigh in.
Oh, I got you.
Yes, not us. I think
Linda, do you have the ability? There we go. You're unmuted, Eileen.
Hi, committee. So I just tuned in a little late. I didn't hear the beginning of this discussion. So I had actually texted Dave and asked what it was that you were specifically discussing. I do practice criminal defense, so I may have a slightly different perspective, and I have myself heard the recordings. So I know specifically what they say, because I wanted to hear them because I was wondering about the DA's decision myself. And so it's really difficult to prove both criminal threats that are over the phone and a hate crime. And so I would say just that it's great to support resolutions of support of our mayor are great, but ones that I think second guess the district attorney, we want to be, I think, a little bit careful about weighing into that territory because it involves decisions, prosecutorial decisions that, you know, a lot of crimes are hard to prove. So I would advise rather than a negative attack on the DA, it be something along the lines of support for our mayor, which I think kind of accomplishes the same thing. And asking for, you know, regular updates, I think also kind of at least keeps the DA honest. But that's just my perspective. You know, you guys do what you want. But and when I took a look at this, I thought that, you know, I don't think it was an easy decision not to prosecute, particularly in this climate, but I actually thought it was the right one. So I would just be a little bit wary of not blowing it up into something that maybe isn't supported. That's all.
Eileen, I appreciate
you.
the comments. Just to, you may not have heard kind of where we came in on this, but it was, we're not necessarily advocating for the DA to take any action. We just want an update on this because, and this is where I would really appreciate to hear your feedback on, you know, in a case like this where, you know, it seems pretty open and shut, right? A decision, a final decision should have been made by now, where that's what we would be asking for if we did something in that direction is what's the final decision on this from your office? Because the last update they gave in their press release said, you know, we're still investigating this, we're still waiting on evidence, and we will give the community an update when we have one. So we're basically just taking them up on their, you know, offer to give an update and wondering with your expertise, you know, should this have been, because what they're saying is that they're still looking at this. There hasn't been a determination of whether they're going to charge or not charge. And that's all we're looking for.
Okay, so here's just my take on that is there is no additional evidence. The evidence was 2 recorded phone calls.
Right.
So, and he may have made some statement to them, but there's nothing else to gather. And so, and this part is just my opinion, is that they're hoping this will die down and blow over so that their decision not to charge, you know, won't create more of a problem. But they have everything they need to charge, and they would have, in my opinion, done it if they wanted. They're just taking the temperature of the community at this point, you know, is what they're doing. So yeah, and that's just my perspective. You know, again, the first part related to the evidence, I think is a fact, but my opinion about what they're doing now is my own perspective. Anyway, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. You know, I totally support what you guys are doing. I just would be wary about wading into criticizing the DA at this point.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Eileen.
Okay.
Thank you very
Have a good
much.
night.
Awesome, Eileen.
So
Are there
I think
anybody-
we should
is-
talk, I think we should talk
Oh,
about that because I gotta say.
Oh, wait, Larry, one quick second. I just want to,
Yeah.
is there anyone else in the public that wants to speak, Dave?
No,
If we're
that
doing
was
it.
just the only
Okay.
one.
Okay, great. Thanks. Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't really care about pressuring the DA or not. I mean, that's not, whether the DA feels pressured or doesn't feel pressured is irrelevant. The issue is what's happening in our community and what do we, as the Racial Equity Committee, decide we want to do to try and address that. This is an abhorrent act. Whether it violates the statute or not is another matter. As someone who enforces the civil rights of people, I got to tell you, I'd take this case in a nanosecond if, if it were something brought to me. But by the same token, it's a lower standard of proof in civil cases than it is in criminal cases. And the intent element is a little, it's a little different in civil cases also. But I think we need to, the DA is not acting purposefully, politically. And that's not something that we should take into consideration. If that's her position, great. But I think what Eileen has highlighted is the fact that she's trying to make this go away. And that doesn't help us. That doesn't serve the needs of San Anselmo. That doesn't serve the needs of the members of our community who don't want this kind of conduct to occur here. And so the real thing that we should be asking ourselves is, how do we try and stop this from continuing or from happening again? And I think nothing should be off the table. I don't think we need to say, oh, we're not gonna say something to the DA because who doesn't want to ruffle feathers? The reason I got on this committee is because I want to ruffle feathers. So and we can take the heat away from the town council. So I think we should say something, and I think it should include a statement to the DA because frankly, if you don't pursue these kinds of cases, then you don't change behavior. And what that man did was wrong. And I think you could probably, if you were a zealous district attorney, you could pursue that if you wanted to. But it is ultimately the DA's decision. But that doesn't mean we can't comment on what the DA does. And so I think we should. I think let's put together something. Let's vote on it for after we put it out in the public, and then we can vote on it in the correct course of business.
Well, another consideration is that if we're taking up something at the next meeting, then we may have gotten that update by then. So that's just another consideration.
I think Eileen has her hand up again. So just in case she wants to respond to it.
Oh, I don't see her.
No, that other.
Here, I have
Oh.
Heidi. Heidi has her hand
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry. Never mind. I was wrong.
But Eileen did just put her hand up again.
I can't see it.
I wish I knew as much as Eileen about this, but I have a different comment. Larry, I agree with you on the general nature of what you're saying. One of the effective tools that I think we can use is simply as a litmus test. We had an act that was threatening and frightening to the mayor of our community. And however it's resolved, what would we as observers or somebody observing what's happening as a community member, what would we want to know about how our town, our community stands around this, or how we feel about this? And so I think our role as representing our community members, not in the council, but in this committee, is to simply provide that hoped for response collectively that would give a profile of what we don't tolerate and what we don't support in our community, right? So we're kind of that voice of our friends and neighbors and those that we live with. And so this happened, it's egregious. I know personally, if it had happened to me, I would have loved to have the entire town make a parade the next day and say, not in our town, that's not happening here. It didn't happen, cool, whatever, for whatever zillion reasons. So I'm looking at our committee as an opportunity to kind of be that voice, to have that opportunity to push back and say, this happened. We don't know why the DA didn't press charges. That's not within our jurisdiction. But we can tell you that this is absolutely egregious. It's not the community that we want to be a part of and support. And we are the voice of our community. And this is something we want to draw attention to. And we want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And if it is happening, we need to take steps to figure out how we can create a more inclusive community.
If I can just chime in really quickly, I kind of actually, though, like the previous approach, Larry. I know you're feeling very, you feel like we should make a statement to the, to the DAs. But I also feel like what's going to be most productive, right? The issue here is they're not doing anything. They're not updating us, right? They're sitting on something important. And at the end of the day, you know, if they could prosecute, great. They shouldn't be just sitting and not doing it. Or alternatively, if they don't have the laws they need to be able to prosecute such crimes, like, I mean, they need to do it. They need to tell us. They need to tell the public, like, hey, we've chosen not to, you know, prosecute for these reasons or whatnot. Like we need to know that. I think at the end of the day, it's like we don't know. Is it them not choosing to do it because, you know, they think, you know, they have particular opinions, or is it just the laws are not strong enough and we need to adjust other, you know, we need to work on other areas. So I think like I would be more of a proponent of doing a more neutral letter that pushes for an update without making a judgment call as to which way they're leaning, and just trying to get them to act quickly, like not just saying give us an update, but there's no reason you guys should be sitting and letting this, you know, take so long.
Well, with that, I think another thing we could do, and I was going to say, whatever we do, statement, resolution, I think it needs to really laud the efforts of the CMPA, who did everything you would want a police department to do in this situation, right? And if that's not media worthy in and of itself, DEI committee praising a police department, you know, I think there's a way to do a statement that addresses the issue, shows support for Brian, as Councilmember Burke said, also shows support and appreciation for the way our police department handled it, state the fact that the DA has not charged in this case, and express our concern with that. Because those are all facts right there.
Steve, I agree with you, Steve, because why not stay with the facts and then the motion isn't involved? And that way we get a better outcome instead of upset. And I, you know, I understand what Larry's saying about not worrying about upsetting someone, but why not? You get more with honey than you do vinegar. So we can push with the facts very firmly and try to get a response instead of upsetting somebody. That's what our main goal is, right? Supporting Brian. And this doesn't happen again in our town. So being another person of color on this committee, if it happened to me, I understand I would be very upset. But let's do it in a way that's productive. You can ruffle all the feathers you want. You can ruffle all the feathers you want, but maybe not get the answer that we need by ruffling the feathers. I say we do the approach, stating the facts. Then if that doesn't work, then ruffle the feathers.
I do think we should.
If we
oh,
do
sorry.
that letter, I think it should be also in the IJ as well. Because I think as a community, we should all know what's going on. So if we are, you know, going to just stick with the facts, that's fine, that's great. But I think it would be great we send it to the DA, we put it in the town newsletter, and we also submit it to the IJ voice section or something like that. So Alexis?
Yeah, just back to the, you know, wanting to support Brian. I think my request would just be that Brian is included and has the final say on whatever is sent in. That's just
maybe not though, because that puts him in a really weird position, Alexis. You know, for a committee, and this is our committee, we have to decide what we're going to do. If he doesn't want to be in it, like, and he doesn't want us like saying anything, you know, specific to him, or we can say we're concerned about our community. Brian is a friend, Brian is a mayor, his family, but I think it really puts him in a position to be doing this, or he would have already done it. That's just my opinion.
I think, Tiffany, that's spot on. And I think it does put him in a position. And if you'll recall, Brian was here at our meeting and said, look, we asked him, how can we support you in this? And he said, look, I've asked for questions and I haven't gotten the answers. And I'm at my wit's end as to why the DA wouldn't prosecute in this case. And he would welcome any support that came. Certainly, you know, Brian and I talk often, and, you know, I would make him aware if we were going to go this direction that was happening. I'm sure Dave would as well. But I do not think that, I think Tiffany is exactly right in that if we put him kind of into this, that puts him in a really weird position. And I think that's one thing we all would want to avoid, is putting Brian in any more of a weird position than this has already put him.
Yeah, I think as a committee, we take responsibility for what were our actions, like what we come up with for
Right.
our town. So that's what I think.
And,
So I think that a good next step for you guys would be to assign somebody to draft this statement. You know, my suggestion would be Tiffany. She did a great job on another one that we recently put out. Another option.
Thank
That was great. I thought it was great. You know, really kind of capturing that. And I think Eileen's advice of really staying away from second guessing that what the DA is going to do with the charge, really talk about, you know, getting a resolution to this situation. That's kind of what's the issue here. So I think that's a great idea. And I think, you know, it could be a letter to it could be directly mailed to the DA, and it could be certainly sent to as a letter to the editor. And then, you know, if it was going to go in our newsletter, it would be more in the form of a notification that this committee is sending it, and we could put the content. It would be more of an action that you guys took. Now,
I would add, Dave, it not just being sent as a letter to the editor, but also being sent to the reporters, to the newsroom at the IJ, saying the committee took this action. We wanted you to be aware.
For their news desk, yeah. Mhm.
great point.
Can I, my 2 cents to kind of bridge the gap between how some people feel like this letter should be versus how like the more, you know, just state the facts approach. I do think though, we should state the facts, you know, and stick to the facts, but I think we do need to make an ask. I think we need to make a strong ask, unequivocal, like it's very clear, we want this. So it gives them an opportunity to take some steps. It's not just like, oh, they just want an update. Like, you know, I think we need to make a strong ask, whatever it is, that at least that, and then they get the message, we need them to take steps, regardless of what they are, they got to do something. And so my thing is, I think we should make an ask, a very strong ask at the end.
Agreed.
Here's the statute. I just looked it up. No person, blah, 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 shall by force or threat of force willfully injure, intimidate, interfere with, oppress, or threaten any other person in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him or her by the Constitution or laws of this state, or by the Constitution or laws of the United States in whole or in part because of one or more of the actual or perceived characteristics of the victim listed in section 422.55, which is the hate crime section. You know, I mean, I know we don't do criminal law, but I could see pursuing it under that statute. So anyway, I agree with Nav.
Excuse me. So a point of clarification for our notes. What I'm hearing is potentially that Tiffany is willing to draft a statement based on the conversation. And then am I hearing that this statement comes back to the August meeting? It gets actually agendized, members of the public can speak on it. And then the statement would be released after that or sent to whoever you decide upon. Is that what I'm hearing?
Assuming that
Yes.
the group approves it, yeah.
Right, yeah.
And I would request, Larry, would you be interested in doing the draft with me?
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you can form a little subcommittee to work on it and continue this conversation and clarify some of those points I
Yeah.
think that you've been
You
raising.
can have
Okay.
up to 3 people.
We need 3 people,
You can have up to, you don't need
up to 3 people. Would anyone else like to be a part of it?
I'm happy to assist if no one else is if someone else is strongly interested, then I will back down. But if no one else is, I will assist too.
Okay, wonderful. Do we have to vote on that, Linda, or for the subcommittee?
I think, can they, Dave? Because it's not an action item.
It's not agendized. It's sort of a future
Yeah.
agenda item type. So we'll confirm it on item 7. It's basically a future agenda item that's being requested, so it's fine.
Okay. So do I wait till we get to item 7 or do
Yeah.
we? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay. So, okay. Are we moving forward now? Are we clear with what's happening and then we can move on to the next thing? The next, okay.
3B.
Okay, 3B, flag policy in relation to Pride Month.
And I'd be pleased to hand this over to one of our council members who were involved in making this happen, unless you'd like me to summarize it, Steve or Alexis.
I could take it and you could fill in the blanks. How about that?
Sounds great.
Yeah, so like many municipalities in Marin, we were approached by the Sparks Center to raise the pride flag during the month of June for LGBTQ plus Awareness Month. And we initially didn't get it together in time to do it right on the 1st. But we did take it up at our first meeting in June, which was on June 8th. It passed unanimously. We did a couple of things, right? One was we created a flag policy for this to happen. And then we made the decision for this June to raise the pride flag. And then again, it wasn't something that we discussed doing in perpetuity. So we'll have to bring it back again next year and, approve it again, but we have a policy to do so and it'll be much more streamlined. I was happy to see that literally like the next day, I was down there and the flag was raised and it looked great at town hall. And I don't know if Alexis or Dave has anything else to add.
No, I want to reiterate, there was some discussion at the council level about, now we have this procedure, which we didn't have before. And there was discussion that, this should be brought up each year for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're not committing to something forever because who knows what's going to change, but really more importantly, it's going to bring the awareness because it's going to be a discussion item every May. And I think there's benefit there because we're, obviously an inclusive community, and I doubt we'll ever have a situation where we'll say no to raising that flag, but it's also nice to kind of talk about it. So we'll now be able to do that.
Anyone else have anything to add about that? Okay, we'll move to 3C, Juneteenth article in town manager's newsletter.
So I'll just really quickly touch on that. So, obviously every week I put out a newsletter and I sort of, had this thought that, that's something we really need to figure out how to, commemorate Juneteenth. And I reached out to your chair as the logical person to help with that. And I'm sure you all saw it. She came up with a wonderful sort of narrative on how to really recognize what it's all about. And I wanted to say publicly, thank you, Tiffany. You turned that around very quickly and we were able to get it out on Juneteenth, which was pretty cool. I thought that was great teamwork because it was sort of a, something that we really need your help with. And having it come from the chair of this committee was just icing and the cherry on top. So thank you for doing it.
Welcome, my pleasure.
It was absolutely fabulous. That was so well written. It was so well presented. Thank you, Tiffany. That was awesome.
Well, thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody. Okay. So we're clear. So clear with that. We can move to the next agenda. There's no voting or anything. Okay.
We're all good there. Number 4.
Okay, so number 4, diversity, equity, and inclusion sharing by committee members proposal. So Heidi, do you want to expand on this about the, like each month, one of the committee members could choose something that they're either reading or watching or listening to that has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then, go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely on it. We were just a few of us were batting around ideas about how there's so much material out there, and many of us have spent the last year or more educating ourselves and continuing to do that. And we thought, well, maybe it'd be great for us to be able, as a committee, to recommend to each other every month a new book, a new documentary, a new source of information that we all committed to reading. We don't necessarily have to come back and have any conversation about it. It's really more about just making sure that we're sharing our information with each other and continuing to expand our understanding of the issues. And then, of course, we could also put it on the website as a recommendation for what this committee is doing as a group to better understand and improve our own education around this and awareness.
Yeah, so each month somebody would choose something. If you're listening to a great podcast, reading a great book, and then we would, or a movie, a documentary, something, and it's a recommendation. 1 month could be me, then it would be Nav, then Heidi, Frank, Larry, and then we'll put it in our section of the website, and then possibly even the newsletter, just to, for people to be aware, like, oh, this is what this is what they're doing. So just we're continuing to grow and learn together as well. So we're doing this work and committed to continuing to learn. Any questions or thoughts from the committee?
It's a great idea.
It really is. And I love the tie-in with the newsletter. I think that's a great way for you guys to have sort of a monthly column on here's what we're doing, and here's some great resources. That's really a neat tie-in. I love it.
Gives us connection to our community too, as a committee. And since, just, we don't know who's going to show up. So if anyone's reading that, and then they'll know about our meetings too. So.
So with every, I know we only have one person in the audience, but I just want to get sort of used to when you present an item, you answer questions, then you say, is there any public comment? So at this point, before we move on, I want to make sure we offer anybody who's in attendance from the public to weigh in on whatever we're talking about. And oftentimes there's no hands up. So in this case, there's one person and there's no hand up. So that means we can move on to the next item.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dave.
One question is how are we going to do that? Who gets chosen first, and does somebody want to come ready to present?
Or we could possibly do it with like alphabetically, either alphabetically last names or alphabetically first names. That way we don't have to vote. We don't have to do more procedures. We can just do it simply like that, if that works for people.
Or you could take volunteers each. We could have this on the item every month, and somebody could volunteer. I'll do it next time, something like that.
And what are your thoughts, everybody on the committee?
I think it would be good to have volunteers go first and then the remaining people go in alphabetical order, because I'd love to contribute, but I also want to see a sample or two before to make sure I fully understand what we're doing here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's sort of like if you've ever received an email from Linda. So at the bottom of her email, she says, this is what I'm reading. So she's reading a book, The Vanishing Half. So it's sort of just that, like, you don't have to, it would just be, this is what Nav is reading this month, and the committee. Nav chose this book, and the committee is, we're going to read that. And it's not like our book club or anything, or if I choose a documentary, it would just be, this is Tiffany's choice for this month, and the committee's watching it, and so sure.
I think I see it as both an opportunity for us to obviously learn more individually, and also to demonstrate actively a commitment to continuing education and sharing that with our community. So
yeah, but we can do it that way, whatever makes everyone feel comfortable. So I'll go first.
All right. We have our August entry.
Duly noted.
Should we just in advance agree who's going when? This way we don't have to revisit this issue.
Mhm.
it'd be nice if we just came up with a monthly, like, okay, the next 6 months, this is who's
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah.
Tiffany, if you're doing August, I can do September.
Okay.
Do we hear October?
I'll do October.
How about November? I only see half of Larry.
Harry, Frank,
Yeah, okay.
That's the
I know
vanity map.
November's bad for me, so I'm not going to do November.
November. Frank, you want November?
November and December is bad for me too. 'cause
Oh.
Oh my
I'm
gosh, you guys
busy
are reading
here.
a book.
I know, you're just choosing something.
Larry, I'll switch with you. Oh, no, you can't do September because you're in trial. Maybe you should do August. This is probably your easiest month.
No, August is Tiffany, I think.
I'll trade with you if that makes it easier. All it is, it's really simple. I promise you. You can go onto Amazon and watch something for an hour or hour and a half and be like, this is a great documentary. This is what I'm putting in. And or something that you've already seen that you really enjoy, that you like, a book that you've already read that you like.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah, it's
I was-
not
I was
like a
gonna
book
share,
report.
Yeah, no book report. You don't have to do a summary. There's no trick
Right.
questions.
Right.
I was going to share a 20-minute segment from the John Oliver show, which is really amazing. I just need to watch it to see if there's any swears in it and then edit them out.
So
So
Larry
let me-
is November.
Who do we have for August?
So Larry-
or I'm August.
Oh, I thought you switched with Larry.
Oh wait, Larry, are you taking August?
Yeah, I'll do August if you do November.
November? Sure, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got Larry for August, Nav for September, Heidi for October, Tiffany for November.
And we have two people who aren't here tonight. Is Frank?
Great, let's add their names.
I saw
I'll do
Frank raise his
December.
hand.
Right, Frank. Queen Sale.
Everybody a Christmas gift. Jeez.
That's to get us through the calendar year. That's
There we
cool.
go. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring up something really good for you.
Yay.
Pressure's on. He'll be the last, so he'll be able to intimidate everyone with his findings.
Oh, I have a person that's going to be great for all of you. I watch him all the time. PSA announcements all the time. He's great on Instagram. He's really
Yeah,
good.
cool.
Awesome. So do we need to do anything for the committee members who aren't here today, or will they just hear about it in the following month?
Yeah, they can grab a month in the spring each.
Okay. Okay, great.
They can read the minutes, and then if they have questions, they can reach out to clarify, what you're deciding or what you've decided.
Okay, great. Okay, so that is that. Is there any public comment?
I see no hands
Okay,
raised.
Thank you. So this has all been approved of. We don't need to take a vote, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Agenda number 5, discuss committee member findings for staff training and policy audit and the next steps to that.
All right, so for this item, what we're asking is that you review the homework compilation, review the draft RFP, and provide direction to staff for next steps. The background is a very simple reiteration of what the charge is for this committee. So, it itemizes that you are charged with.
Hello? Hello?
oh,
Hello?
Oh, Frank, can you
Oh,
mute
sorry.
yourself?
That you are set to, facilitate an audit of the town policies, procedures, programs, and also help with staff training in issues of racial, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's just all itemized at the first part of the background. At your May meeting, you agreed to conduct research into exploring options and implementing anti-bias or other appropriate training for staff and the policy audit. And that is one of the attachments for this meeting is that collection of homework. And then we've also pulled together an RFP that was taken from another agency and modified for our needs here in San Anselmo for your review and sort of to kickstart, this part, which is the core of what this committee is tasked with. We are, I don't want to say we're a month behind, because, you know, we're really not, but we had anticipated having this conversation last month and ran out of time. So we moved it to this month. So what you'll find in the audit is that it's been recommended that the town seek an outside vendor to conduct the work. We don't have the in-house expertise to do it ourselves. And so you can review the draft RFP and hopefully sort of give your seal of approval for moving forward to release the RFP. Part of it also asks for recommendations for staff training. But in the process of doing this, staff has learned that IRMA, which is the town's Employment and Risk Management Authority, offers some training on implicit bias and DEI in the workplace. Oh, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, as Linda mentioned, we have we're part of an insurance pool and a lot of different trainings. And as with a lot of other organizations, they've contracted with a company to provide this training. I just wanted to, we just got the description, so I wanted everybody to see this is what we're going to be providing to all of our employees, and we're also looking at a way to have it offered for our town council and hopefully some of our committee members. We're going to take it to town council. We're not just going to do that, but it's not legally required that we do it with the committee, with the committees and commissions. I feel like it would be important to look at a way to do that. So just if anybody has any questions, it's a highly thought of training group that's doing it. So just wanted to share that.
Dave, is it a live training? Is it something that is facilitated, or is this online? Is it something?
You can do both. They offer both. With most of the trainings with IRMA, you can, we kind of like to do them live. It's hard to get, but to be able to reach everybody, you have to also have an electronic version like they do with ethics training and with harassment training. But, because we have a lot of local towns that share in the same insurance pool, a lot of times we can get, take care of a lot of employees. But like our town council chambers is perfect for those types of trainings, because you can get about 50 people in there and you can have the speaker in the front. So we can share it with Fairfax and Larkspur and Corte Madera, because they're all part of the same group. But they'll offer them both ways.
You mentioned that possibly the committee or us, I'm assuming you're talking about committee members, would be able to attend. Is that something that we would have to ask the town council, or how would that work?
We're going to work with the town council. It's right now, it's something that we can't require, but if we want, we're going to kind of look at that part of it. I think we can certainly, if there's if people want to volunteer to get that training, we can probably look at that. But I think, I don't want to commit the council's decision on whether or not that's going to be something that we require. It's kind of a big deal. We can, it's a lot to keep track even of the required trainings of all. We have a lot of boards and commissions in this town. So my hope is that we can make something like that work.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if it's something that's open and if anyone on this committee would like to attend, I think it would be great to have that opportunity.
Right. And right now, a lot of are live on Zoom, which can work really well for something with a webinar where you have a presenter, you have the opportunity to ask questions. I like, I'm more of an in-person person, but we're looking into all those. So, but we just got word that this is part of the 2021-22 training offerings that they have, and it's great. So I'm excited. So we'll get more as like I said, I just got the description. We'll let you guys know as we go how we're going to roll it out and how we're going to potentially include or offer it to the boards and commissions as well.
Great, thank you, Dave.
They frequently require a minimum number of participants, and that would be a great opportunity to make sure we had enough participants to open it up to this commission.
That would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Linda. Heidi, you have your hand up.
Yeah, a couple of things. I would advocate opening it to all of those committees and boards that are a part of our town administration and an extension of that, to just be more inclusive around anyone and everyone who's active in the town's business, and invite those folks in too. The second thing is this something that would be in addition to any recommendation that this committee comes up with for training, or is this?
This is something we're gonna, you know, the training thing, we were already looking into rolling it out. If we feel like there's a complementary opportunity, we're open to that. You know, if, like you guys, there's some opportunities that are on the spreadsheet that Linda put out. So no, I don't think we're closing that. I just don't want to, since we have this and it's part of what we already get offered by our insurance pool, we want to make sure we take advantage of it. But I think that if there's something that can kind of layer on top or on the bottom, you know, kind of help with a different type of, you know, inclusivity training or whatever it looks like.
Yeah.
We're open to that.
Got it. Okay. And then just my third question is, does it make sense for us to create some sort of criteria that we use to then evaluate the types of trainings that are offered and then make a selection process based on the criteria that we think are important?
Yeah, if we want to have, like I say, the second layer of all these other trainings that are out there, if we feel there is room for a second one or a third one, that's how we would handle it. I think we're going to do the one that we have. You guys will do it as part of this, as part of working with the town. But if we want to look at other opportunities, that would be a good way to evaluate them, is to come up with criteria. If we're going to, you know, kind of get some samples and, you know, look at, you know, compare descriptions and things like having criteria would make sense.
Great. And Nav.
Sorry, I was on mute. To start off with, I think I just want to applaud the town for doing this. I had a chance to skim through this, and I just wanted to say I don't have details or feedback, but I do want to applaud. I just spent last week fighting with another board about doing trainings, and it wasn't a very easy process. So I am glad that this step is being taken. And then the second question I had is, it is required for employees, right? You mentioned that it's, you know, it's voluntary for, you know, the boards and whatnot, but for the employees of the town, is this going to be required?
Yes, this will be required.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we're going to work through with the council how far we want to go with making this a requirement for voluntary service. But like I said, we have a lot of people who volunteer with us, and I think, you know, and we'll have a good discussion. You know, Stephen and Alexis can help kind of lead that and decide kind of how we want to place this. Right now, people need to, only in a couple of our levels are they required to take there's an ethics training and a harassment training. We have you know, we have a certain amount of people that have to take all of those. So we're going to kind of put it into our training hopper. Unfortunately, we're in between finance and administrative services directors who handle all these things. So what I'm trying to do is get it all kind of together for when that person steps in, because they'll be the ones implementing it. I'm hopeful we're going to get a great person very soon, but right now we're just trying to collect all the information and get something ready for council. I would say, you know, potentially in August or early September for how we want to handle the boards and commissions.
Anybody else have anything to add or any questions?
All right, so if I may, I'll continue. Has anyone here heard of GARE, the Government Alliance on Race and Equity group? They're a nationwide network of government working to achieve racial equity and advance opportunities for all. And a number of our neighboring jurisdictions have joined GARE, and they do training also. So as Town Manager Dave Donnery mentioned, there are various levels of training. So this would provide our town staff another opportunity for training. And our library staff has been doing training as part of the California State Library, part of an initiative, and GARE has come in and done part of those trainings for us, and it's been excellent. We've learned a lot, and we're working through a lot of projects and issues. So it is our recommendation to you to approve or sort of, give your approval to us to join GARE so that the town of San Anselmo could take advantage of the resources that that organization offers to us. The cost is about $1,000 a year for membership in GARE. So in conclusion, the charge of the Racial Equity Ad Hoc Committee delineates the need for the audit of the town policies, programs, and procedures and laws to be sure that they are fair, equitable, and free of biases of any kind, and for identifying anti-bias and other DEI training for staff. So we are asking that you review the homework and the draft RFP, consider membership in GARE, and then provide direction to us for next steps after you discuss this proposal. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them between Dave and I. Hopefully we can answer them.
Quick question, Linda. So if you said GARE worked really well with that your libraries had some trainings already, correct?
Yes.
And oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. With the $1,000 per year, what do you get for that membership?
So what you get is access to their training portal, and their training portal includes online trainings at this point on all different topics, DEI topics, but also groups that are put together by basically department function. So there are library groups, there are planning groups, public works groups, and they are support groups, listservs. So different groups of like-minded people come together to talk about racial equity, diversity issues that are specific to their field of expertise. So our library involvement is through a grant through the state library, and the state library has partnered with or commissioned GARE to do part of that training. So we're not directly members of GARE at this point. We just sort of have had the opportunity to look behind the drape and see what it's like and what the quality of the training is, how thorough it is, and library staff has been very pleased with it. We've learned so much already.
No, that's great to know. I love how they do it by each department's function. That's really important. So thank you.
I just skimmed on it and skimmed through it, and it looks like their toolkits look very impressive.
Does anybody have any comment? Alexis, question?
This is just a quick comment on GARE. Is that all right? I have talked to a couple of people from other jurisdictions who have highly recommended GARE as being a really effective tool for them in their equity work.
Great.
Oh, that's awesome. Great to know. So this is for us to review and have a decision for next time when we meet, correct?
No, you could actually, it's all before you. You can ask for public comment, and you could give us direction to go ahead and join GARE, say thumbs up to the IRMA trainings, and to issue the RFP.
Okay.
Am I reading that right, Dave?
Yeah, the GARE, I think we were going to talk about joining GARE anyway, but we definitely want this something comes out of this committee. A lot of the towns have joined, and they're finding there's a lot of great resources available to them. As far as the RFP, we wanted to make sure that you read through the contents of what we're going to be asking people to respond to, and there's going to be the issuance of it is going to follow. But right now, what we're really asking you to do is making sure that what we've got down here, that once again, Steve helped us track down a really great copy from another agency up in Oregon. We want to make sure that you've had a chance to read through this and feel that what we're asking them to do is inclusive of all of the different areas that the town does work in, to make sure that it's kind of scrubbed of any potential bias, basically. So I don't know if you've had a chance to go through it, but this is going to be the core of what we put out with our probably an RFQ at the first stage.
Dave, I had a question.
Yeah.
With respect to the RFP, and I think you guys did a great job of adapting that and making it, relevant to San Anselmo. What are we voting on here today? Because wouldn't an RFP like that have to be voted on by the council?
Yeah, that's what I was wanting to make sure. Thank you, Steve. I was wanting to make sure that we made sure that this is really about the content of what's in front of you, because we don't have any budget for an RFP. We're going to have to then take the steps to bring something to council to make sure that it's something that's going to receive funding. So what we're voting on today is whether we think this is an inclusive RFP of what we want to be able to get from the company that we eventually hire to do the audit. So if you go through it, it's pretty clear what we're asking of the company, of whoever the vendor is. We think it's a pretty complete RFP, but that's what we're voting on. We're not voting on, we're going to send this out next week and take in anything right now, because that is a council sort of function.
And when
Thank
is
you
the
for clarifying that, because
I was like, hold on.
let's go.
when is the council going to be voting on their RFP?
Well, we're going to take it after today. We're going to start probably not until, we only have one meeting a month in the summer, one meeting in July and one meeting in August. So it's very well could come to the August meeting at this point.
I think, sorry.
Oh, Heidi, you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Oh, Nav, was yours a follow-on from that?
Go ahead. I'll take my turn
So,
later.
yeah, I'm just seeking clarification. It sounds like the RFP then is primarily for the audit portion, for the policies, procedures, et cetera, and the GARE and the IRMA is really about the staff training. Have I got that lined up? Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and I looked through it. It looks very comprehensive. It also then, I think, by definition, lays out the criteria that any applicant would be using to decide, because we've got all these this is what you want you to do, and then it's really about to what degree are they able to satisfy that. So
yeah, the reason we put it's obvious. There's RFPs in every kind of field, is really to make sure that the deliverables are going to be the same from every proposal that comes in. So it keeps it sort of in their lanes as far as what we need from them. And with the response, we'll have a chance to review each response with this committee prior to taking things to council as well. So
right.
It's an iterative process. It's not something you want to do as fast as you can. You want to make sure you're going through the process to make sure that you're going to get the right product. So with that said, it may not be that we have had a chance to review all the responses by August. So I guess a better answer to your question, Nav, is we'll go to council once we feel like we have a better idea of what we want to do and how much what we want to do costs.
Mm. And then one last clarifying question. Once the town council approves and adopts the idea of sending out this RFP, I know that there is attached a pretty long list of providers that were put together from a variety of inputs. Is it assumed then that the RFP would just go out to all of those, or is there some other source that we're going to use to kind of select a few, or what does that look like?
No, we want to cast a wide net with these things.
Mm-hmm.
We'll obviously review all the resources that we've been provided to make sure that they're what they do is within the realm of what we're asking. We're not going to sort of arbitrarily send everything out, but if there's a bunch of them that do this, then we should really give them a chance to respond.
And the prices range is dramatic. So it would probably be wise to have a broad net cast in case we get some of those crazy, $400,000 requests for, bids.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, if you guys get the chance, I appreciated looking at all of the information and stuff that was sent around here. I know we sent around the West Lynn information. If you go to their website, you could actually see the proposals. They're very transparent. They have the whole process they went through. They even have the proposals of each of the firms that submitted. And the range can be anywhere from, there was one firm or a couple of firms that were around 36 to 39,000. One, the 36,000 was just for like the policy audit. But there was another phase there for another 30,000. There was one firm that looked really impressive to me, that the whole soup to nuts was about 40,000, 39, 40,000. But there were some in there that were like 131,000 and 161,000. So it's really, what do we have? What can we afford? But if you get the chance, West Lynn, Linn, Oregon, just type in West Lynn racial equity and you'll get to their page. It's pretty comprehensive and really provided a good framework for what we're doing. I've spoken with a couple of the council members up there, and they've raved about the services that they got. And certainly, they were in a position where, I don't want to say they were forced to do this, but they had a number of racial incidents in their town that really prompted them to do this. And they felt really well served by the firm they went with and kind of what they got, and their own kind of journey to transparency and how they're dealing with it and how they're presenting what they did and the information on their website. So if you get a chance, look at it. If you haven't already, it's pretty comprehensive, and that's kind of the framework for the RFP that staff created here. And I think it's, I'd be interested to put it out and see what we get.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more? Nob, did you have something more to add or to our question?
No, it was just based off of timing in terms of like, should we go ahead and chime in now, or should we send our feedback, or do we?
I'm glad you asked that. I think summer's crazy, and I doubt all of you have had a real chance to take a deep dive on this. This is not something we want to rush forward. It's going to be, expense that's going to be significant. So, if it suits everybody, if you wanted to come back to our next meeting after you've had a chance to really go through it, we can finalize it, because it won't go to the council before late August. So rather than just sort of approving it now without feeling super strong about your review, I think it's fine to push the review to the August meeting, if that's what you're asking.
Well, if everyone else reviewed it, I just skimmed through it and it looked totally fine to me. As of now, I have no feedback or anything. I just wanted to get the timing in terms of, is it worth me doing a second look, and in case there was timing. So I'm fine with either approach, either approving or doing a second look.
And just point of practicality, the next meeting is not a month away, because this meeting is a week later. So our August meeting is actually just in 3 weeks, which is around the corner. So however that impacts your decision making.
And not having two people here, it might make sense to wait for the final approval to the meeting. I think it's the 3rd, am I right? The 3rd of August.
I think that makes a lot of sense with their absence, and then having a short time frame, and because it is an important conversation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to that old saying that I learned a long time ago. You got to go slow to go fast. You want to do your homework and your due diligence, and then once it gets out there, then we'll be able to get moving on stuff.
So then, is that just for the RFP? And so, or do we need a motion to approve, excuse me, Irma and Gare?
It'd be great to have a motion. I think let's take public comment if there is any at this point.
I do not see any public comment. I don't see any hands raised, I should say.
Okay. So now we can come back and take a vote on joining GARE and well, we're going to do IRMA either way. So really it's voting on joining GARE.
Okay. Oh. Okay, motion to approve joining GARE. Frank,
I
uh,
am for
Knob.
the motion, yes.
Yes.
Heidi,
Yeah, I second. Mhm.
Larry.
Don't we actually have to have a motion?
Yeah, did Frank move?
You
I could-
did.
I did make the motion, and then
He made the motion, I seconded it, and now you go into the vote.
Now you can start.
we got it. We got under
No,
control.
I missed that. I apologize. So yes, I vote yes.
Okay, I vote yes as well.
Did we get everybody's vote? Did we
Yep,
get your vote, Bob?
Yep.
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so everyone
Multitasking.
approved for, Irma's approved, and then item 5 will be moved to August, to our August meeting. Frank,
I will be gone that August. So August 3rd, I will be in the mountains with no reception at all.
Could you
No.
get us any comments you might have, Frank?
Not really.
You don't have to, but I mean, because we're going to be finalizing the RFP on August 3rd. So if you want to just take a look through it, and if you're fine with it, go, we'll be fine. If you have any comments, let us know and we'll include those.
Thank you, everyone.
thanks. Thank you. Okay, so moving to the next item. Number 6, brainstorming session on additional opportunities to examine and/or address racial equity, social justice, systemic racial bias, and diversity issues that are within the town's control. That's sort of similar to kind of what we just touched upon.
So this item, the idea is really to sort of give you free rein to just dream, think big, brainstorm about other things that this committee would like to do. You can start the process this evening if you would like, and really, sort of crack that nut open and explore. You can decide to move this to the next meeting as well. Maybe do some today, some next time. So it's up to you how you'd like to proceed with the big picture, this big picture item. And yes, I know Steve has a lot of thoughts on this item.
I don't have a lot of thoughts. I just wanted to do some basic level setting here. And, the purpose of this committee as it was set up, it was initially set up as an ad hoc committee. And so the initial charge is basically the item we just discussed, and showing progress on that is really, I really appreciate that, because it shows that we're taking meaningful action steps, early on, and we're executing the charge that we were given from the town council. So beyond that, and this is where I'll step out and give you my personal hope, is that this committee sees an existence far beyond that initial charge. And, ultimately, we're going to be forced to make a recommendation towards the end of our 1-year period of whether we think this committee needs to continue and has a place in our town to be continued, which I certainly think it does. But that's just how I think. So this discussion item is more about, how do we see this committee operating? Do we see it as, hey, we're going to do that initial charge, the policy audit and the training, and then we're good? Or do we see an ongoing, purpose to this committee? And if so, what is that purpose? What can we do? And I think, honestly, our discussion earlier tonight about the district attorney and the whole situation that happened in our town, I think that to me is reason enough to say, yes, there's a lot of meaning in this, to have a forum, to have those discussions, to issue a statement if need be. Because not that you ever want it to happen in town, but I think it was very fortuitous, the timing of when it happened. We had just formed this committee, and then boom, we have this very high profile racial incident in our town. And I feel good knowing that we have a committee in place that we can kind of discuss the, what's happened, what we can do, how we can better create inclusivity in our town. And so that's what this discussion item, that's how I take this discussion item is, what do we see as the function, the purpose of this committee moving beyond that initial charge? And I think there's a lot of area for us to explore.
Thank you, Steve. Nav,
Sorry, are we commenting on this or no?
we
Sorry.
can comment it. Yeah, we can. Or
brainstorm.
Linda was saying, or we can comment on it. But I think for coming up with stuff, Linda, you're saying we could also push the ideas until August, or we can do it now or do both.
It's entirely up to you. It's more for your group to take your own temperature. Are you willing to embark on a whole new topic at 8:08? You've been going at it, for an hour and a half. Do you feel like embarking on a robust discussion now? So it's 100% up to you.
Members, what are you thinking? And Nav, you were up. So
If nobody minds, I just like to give my 2 cents, and I don't think we will have an opportunity to probably thoroughly brainstorm every possible idea right now. So it'd be great if we can have an opportunity to think of those in advance of our next meeting. But my 2 cents are, I think it warrants having a standing committee here. And Steve, I agree with your sentiment that I don't think our mission will be accomplished. I don't think we'll live in a time or a place where these issues will stop at this point. I mean, it would be ideal if this wasn't an issue, but I do think ultimately having this committee go beyond just the initial policy review is definitely warranted, because there's so much we can do that we haven't even tapped into, such as, bridging a gap with the community itself, reaching out to the community, making them aware that we're here, knowing that they could reach out to us. And also, really maybe even doing surveying of like, what could we do to make the community feel, the people who might have been impacted or who are impacted feel better and feel safer and feel more welcomed here. And what can we do to, just make our, I don't know. I think there's a lot to do. I think there are a lot of ideas that we can come up with to keep us busy for a long time. And I know that things don't always move very fast just because there's a lot of things and everyone is busy. Obviously, we can't just carve out. So I just think that it's a good idea to keep going. And if we have an opportunity to meet and talk about the brainstorming ideas next time, I think it'd be great if we can all come with some ideas.
yeah, Dave.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Nav for that. And also, once we, now that we have the kind of the training module pretty much underway and we get the RFP out, really the rest of our time together is on this topic. It's really taking the time to really think about, research what others are doing and look at, what we can do locally. And that's going to be the next 8 months. So I think that the initial brainstorm, we've kind of been excited about it because I want to hear you guys have in mind. And I'm with Steve that I feel like this is something that really could be something that's part of our structure in town, and having a platform for these kinds of discussions is really important personally to me. So, but once we get that initial brainstorming, it's not over. We have, what we're going to want to come up with is a lot, discussions that get us to sort of some decision points on what we think this committee could be long term, and then we go to council and pitch the thought that we either whether the group says, all this work that we've done is great, we're done, or we think there's room for a standing committee and here's what the standing committee will do, next spring. That's kind of the 2 tracks. And that's really what we're going to be working on for the rest of our time once we get this RFP underway. So it's, in a way, it's pretty exciting.
Definitely. Thank you, Dave. Heidi.
Yeah, I see it as like the really fun, exciting, juicy part. And I think there's a lot of work to be done around initiatives that we could come up with. I was just reflecting on some of the materials that were put together today in the consolidated information. And there's a number of idea sharing, which has come up a few times. For example, creating forums for people to actually, have a voice, have issues heard. And maybe it's really about just kind of brainstorming and then putting some structure around what some of those ideas would look like in terms of implementation in an ongoing way. But yeah, it's exciting. And I think dedicating more of a complete meeting to that conversation would be really good.
Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think there's just so much we can do just with the different departments in the town, and I don't know, speaker series, things where we can connect with the community, just so there's information and connection, and just I think, it's unlimited, so we can come up with a lot of different things. Frank.
Hi. So, the one thing that I think everything that you're saying is great, and everybody's really on a positive. I really love this committee. Where I feel we really need to address things is the people that don't have a voice, that don't speak English, that are Central and South American. That's where we really should be. I mean, most people have a voice in this town, but we don't approach them in Spanish. Spanish is their first language. Who's speaking for them? I feel that that's the real big ticket for us, because they don't have a voice.
That's a really good point too. And I think maybe as you're saying that, I'm thinking on the Racial Equity Committee for the high school for Archie Williams, we did not have a translator. And then when we got a translator, we definitely more parents came. So maybe that's something we as a committee can consider for our meetings right now. It worked out really well. There's Zoom has the translation where you can hear Spanish and English, but I think that's a great point, Frank. And I don't know if we can put that on the agenda for next month to come up with something where we can have someone who can interpret our meetings.
Because they could give such a different perspective than us. I mean, they really have a different perspective. They're living two or three families to a home to make it, like I mentioned before, even in my interview. So I really like to, champion them. That's all.
Thank you. So is that, Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, I did a little research, and I looked at this report that was put out by Petaluma on, they put together a community forum on racism and interaction with the police in Petaluma. I mean, I'm not so sure that that's our big issue. I don't know of issues relative to the police department, but the idea of a community forum seems to me to sort of tap into what Frank has alluded to, which is, we need to really do some outreach to the community members we have, particularly, people of color, and find out, why did they come here, and what do they think we might be able to do better to encourage more people of color to come to our town. And that's always been, I mean, I've lived in San Anselmo now for a while, almost 30 years. And it's the only downside that I can see to our town, other than maybe too many nail shops. But I just think that it's really, if we want our community to be more diverse, we have to let people know it's a good place to come, and so I think a community forum of some type would help us do that outreach. And so that's just my idea. I mean, I stole it. It's not really my original idea, but in terms of doing outreach, I think that would be good. And it could be a really positive, uplifting thing, to show people outside it will help people in our community. And I think it'll help people outside our community sort of hear the message that, we want you to come here. So
making them feel welcome. I mean, you want to I mean, it was interesting. I've had some deep conversations with some friends, and it's interesting. You think about Marin, and it's 85 or 90% Caucasian, right? So, and I hope no one takes offense to this, because Steve will know that I'm pretty a straight shooter. Most of you, and I don't want to speak for you, but from talking to people in my community, the times that you have interactions with Central and South Americans, they're cleaning your home, they're washing your dishes, they're doing your yard work. It's an interesting thing that you think about the people in this town. That's their interaction with Central and South Americans. It's pretty odd to me. I mean, I understand it because of where we live, but reaching out to them. And another question I had for some people is, what have you done to outreach? Have you been to the canal and reached out to them, seen how you can help? Have you been to Marin City and seen what you can do to help them? A couple of you said in your interviews and even on the first call, you wanted to be educated. I mean, with all due respect, I'm not here to educate you. Go to Richmond and get educated. There's a lot of neighborhoods you can walk through and introduce yourself to people if you want to get educated. That would be my input to you, because I grew up in those neighborhoods in Sacramento. I mean, and to Steve, like one of the first questions, all this stuff has been bubbling up inside of me since last time. It's kind of crazy. Is when you asked what teacher made a difference in you of color. And it's interesting for some of us, I mean, Tiffany, Knopf, I mean, it's our parents, our family. Those were the first people that color made influence on me. It wasn't the teacher. It would have been the first interaction that some of you had of Caucasian that made an influence on you. I don't know if the teacher was the right, it's your question. I respect it, but it would have been, who was the first person that made an influence on me of color? For us, of people of color, it's our family, our parents, our grandparents. They took care of us so our parents could do better. So just my 2 cents.
Great. Thank you, Frank. Steve.
Yeah, I always bring this up every time, because when we were having the discussions about, creating this committee at the council level, when, certainly the George Floyd incident happened, everybody always talks about, and rightfully so, when you're talking about Marin as a whole, the canal and Marin City. But what I always bring up is that we have our own very low income pocket here in San Anselmo that is predominantly people of color, and that's Marin Housing Authority properties right by the Isabel Cook Center. I have the fortunate or unfortunate privilege of having ran for office a number of times, and part of my whole thing is I go door knocking. That I like to reach people on the doors. I'm old school like that, and that's always one of the first places I go, because A, it's in my neighborhood. B, I really, I've spent my whole life organizing, growing up in lower income conditions. Like I connect with those people. And so I always want to remind people that, whatever you consider Marin City or the canal, we have elements of that here in San Anselmo as well. And that is where I focus on connecting first and foremost. And certainly in my neighborhood, I live in probably one of the lower income parts of town, if there's a lower income part of town, but my tract is predominantly rental incomes and stuff like that. And in my neighborhood, on my street, there are plenty of families of color. So when I hear this, oh, San Anselmo's, predominantly white, yeah, statistically it is, but that's not my daily experience. When I go to the coffee shop every morning, when I go to the grocery store every evening, when I'm going for my evening walk, I see a very diverse part of San Anselmo. And I think it's something that needs to be celebrated, frankly. And so before we look to Marin City and the canal, let's look to our own communities of color right here in San Anselmo.
Well, you
I
made
definitely, I would like to know where. I don't see people of color, only myself.
But Steve, you're basically echoing what I mentioned earlier. I mean, that's what I said my interview. I mean, we have them here. Why aren't we reaching out to them to make them feel welcome? That's what this committee should be doing right away. That should be the really agenda items.
Well, that's our agenda for that would be Yeah, for now, but that would be good. So, Frank, if you're not going to be here for the next meeting, would you be willing to, email the committee, your thoughts and ideas so that when we have it on the agenda next month, we have it, because this is great, great information.
Yes.
That'd be great. Okay. And then that way we have your input and experience as well. Okay, so is there any public comment?
I see no hands raised.
Okay, all right. Do we need to vote to a motion to move it to the August meeting? Or does that automatically just happen?
Good.
We're good? Okay. Okay, 7, future agenda items. Okay, Heidi.
Yeah, so Elise and I just worked on a brief written statement about drawing attention to the racial covenants and the opportunity that the county is making to kind of initiate changing those. I don't really know what happened to that. I don't really know where it went. I don't know if there's any action needed or what. So I just wanted to maybe come back to that next meeting and find out the status of that.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything else?
Well, I mean, maybe the idea of the community forum, maybe we want to put that on the agenda. However, I don't want to overload the agenda. So I mean, it can wait to September if I mean, we've got a lot of stuff to do at the next meeting.
That would be a part of agenda 6, I think, as well.
Yeah.
That we're going to move to the next meeting.
Yeah, that's right. I guess it is. So, okay.
Does that work?
And you'll also have a report from your subcommittee with the letter or statement or whatever you craft.
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, yeah, from Larry and myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll have the RFP. We'll all have read and come up with our thoughts on the RFP for the next report. On the question, yes. Okay. I think that's it. Does anybody else have anything else?
No, thank you for shepherding the meeting this evening.
My pleasure. Any public comment?
I see no hands raised.
Okay. So, all right, then we're at number 9, adjournment.
You can just say the meeting is adjourned.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Great meeting, everybody.
Really great
Yeah,
meeting.
really great
Nice
meeting.
to
Good
see
stuff.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
night.
Larry, I'll connect with
Everyone,
you.
have a great meeting and next time.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.